Hi, everybody. I am Mikayla Dalton. I am a fertility awareness-based educator, and I am a mom of 3 children that I'm raising now and 2 that I miscarried in between my second and third children. Um, I've been partnering with Premom for some time, doing the occasional video spot. I'm also a consultant on the Premom App. So if you're ever looking for any charting help, you can find me by opening your app, going to the More section on the bottom right, and then following the prompts. And you can find me under Fertility Awareness Educator or Fertility Awareness help right there. For today's topic, I wanted to talk about memorializing miscarriage. Or marking a miscarriage. So for those of us who are trying to conceive, we may know about a pregnancy before most women who are not tracking their cycle and actively trying to conceive might become aware. So one thing I've noticed in my work is that sometimes women will find that they are pregnant and they'll know very early on, and they have a very early miscarriage, whereas other women might not have even ever known that they were pregnant and just gotten their period and thought nothing of it. So that's something to be aware of. Just so we have our terms down for this discussion, I wanted to talk about what a miscarriage is. In medical speak, it's sometimes called a spontaneous abortion, which is a term that a lot of people don't like. If you ever hear anybody use that, it's just like a medical term that's in common use among medical professionals. But as a more general use, we say miscarriage. And what a miscarriage is a loss that occurs before viability. It's typically cut off at around 20 weeks. So if you lose your baby before that 20-week mark-ish, they'll tend to call it a miscarriage. Later than that, it tends to be called a stillbirth. So within miscarriage, you can have an early miscarriage, which is a loss that occurs in the first trimester before the 13th week of pregnancy, or a late miscarriage, which occurs in the second trimester between the 13th and 20th weeks of pregnancy. A recurrent miscarriage is when, medically speaking, is when you have 3 or more consecutive miscarriages. Chemical pregnancy is a term I personally don't like. I would classify that as early miscarriage. What happens with a chemical pregnancy is you have implantation sufficient to cause a positive on a pregnancy test, but you lose the baby very early on before there's any chance of seeing that with an ultrasound or any other way. So I'll leave that there just for the definitions so that we're all on the same page. Let me tell you about mine. So I have here, so this is what I decided to do. I have here this little box that I've repurposed. I think originally it had a necklace or something in there. Right, so I've got this little setup. Oh, wait, got to make sure the video, that's kind of showing it. We've got this background that's not, it's not showing so much. And so in this box, I had 2 consecutive miscarriages. In that box, I have 2 sets of memorabilia, I suppose, mementos. The first one, my positive pregnancy tests. So I have 3 here. I have 3 positive pregnancy tests that I took. I have a little prayer card. It's a specific prayer, a prayer for all those mourning the loss of a child. I have a little card that I had actually left from when I made birth announcements for a prior child. And so in the card, I've written a name that we gave the baby. And then I wrote the conception date because I was charting, so I could pin that down to a window. So I said the 3rd or 4th of May. Um, and then I wrote down when I had implantation related spotting and when I saw a positive pregnancy test, and I kept a record. So I wrote that down of the positive tests I took, and then when it was finally negative. So I've got the little card that I put in there. And there's also, just so you know, my faith heritage is Catholic, so I'm Christian. So some of my mementos will be religion specific, but I have a little certificate here from when I registered the baby with the Shrine of the Holy Innocents in New York. You can contact them. They'll take the name of your baby and register it with their names to be remembered. So I have those. And then finally, this is a common way to memorialize babies. So if you have suffered a loss and you were looking for something to do, so in this particular case, I have a little baby rosary, again, because I'm Catholic. So what makes it special for this baby is it has a centerpiece of Mary and baby. It has a little side charm with a couple of little baby feet on there. And then as part of the beads, we have the name that we chose. So then the name for this baby, we named this baby Jamie. We didn't know if it was a girl or a boy, so we weren't far along enough to have found out the sex of the baby. So I wanted a gender neutral name because I didn't have a strong feeling either way of whether it was a boy or a girl. So we did that for that baby. And then when we conceived our next baby, and that one also miscarried, I did the same thing. So I have the same prayer card. I have the registration with the Shrine of the Holy Innocents. I have the pregnancy tests. I have the HCG report from my doctor. See, I have very little HCG report from my doctor. And again, another rosary here with the baby's name. We named this one Frankie. Again, we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, so I went for the gender neutral kind of name. So that's what we did again. And fortunately, our third baby was Sticky Baby. And that one is currently 6 years old. So that's how I remembered. I'm not a date person. In fact, my husband laughs at me because I'm the one that will forget our anniversary date. Well, he remembers. So I'm not a date person, but I do know that many women who've had a loss will remember the date of their miscarriage, remember the date of their D&C, and always mark that day. And it's a particular day on their calendar that they'll remember. With the rosary beads, not everybody is going to want rosaries, but that idea can be ported to prayer beads of a whole range of faith traditions. It's really common for different faiths to have prayer beads. So you can do a similar thing. You can also just use jewelry. I know a lot of women will get a necklace. If they have other children, they might have a charm for each of their children. One lady told me that she has a necklace with little colored eggs for each of her children, and for the baby that she miscarried, the egg is white. So that's an idea you can have. You can do similar to that. Other jewelry ideas. A lady told me that she keeps a little stack, the stacking rings, the really thin rings that you can get. She puts those in between her engagement and wedding bands. So she remembers her miscarried babies that way with the stackable rings, various charms and necklaces you can use. What really shocked me when I had my miscarriages was the lack of written material that my doctor would give me. And to be fair, my doctors, my OBs were very nice and they were very sympathetic, but they didn't have anything to give me. There were no resources. I was kind of flailing around and not knowing what to do. So I wanted to let you know there's actually a whole lot of resources out there. There's been a movement recently to be more open about miscarriage. For a long time, it was considered very hush-hush. If you're a private person and you don't want to share, that's perfectly okay. And I lean towards the private, so this being a video is a little strange for me. But it seemed like a taboo. And this is something that many families experience, and it doesn't seem fair that they should need to handle it on their own, feeling like it's taboo to talk about. So we don't want to be doing that. I wanted to let you know there are a range of support materials out there and websites you can go to. One of them is the Early Pregnancy Loss Association. That's a website under miscarriagecare.com. They have resources to help you with the immediate needs you might have if you find yourself miscarrying. So they have resources directly to care providers, and they help people directly. Another one that I like is called Little Souls at Rest, Little Souls at Rest Foundation. They are there to provide immediate burial needs for families suffering the loss of a baby up to 20 weeks of pregnancy. So this is something that can vary from place to place. So where you are, when you have a stillbirth, usually the hospital can help you out with burial arrangements, but hospitals vary a lot with how they approach miscarriage, especially early miscarriage. So if you wanted to bury the remains of your baby, sometimes it can take a lot of phone calls and different cemeteries and working with the cemetery to figure things out. I know that as a Catholic, the Catholic churches will often have procedures for helping you bury the remains of miscarried children. And there are a couple of Catholic specific organizations or Christian specific organizations like Back in His Arms Again is another one, which is backinhisarmsagain.com. A Mom's Peace is a Catholic run organization, and that's a mom's peace, PEACE.org, and they provide help for women who are mourning the loss of a baby in utero. So there are actually a lot of resources out there, and that's just a handful, and those are the ones that are special to me, but there are a lot. So if you have a faith tradition, I'd recommend searching out for what that might offer. A lot of these organizations, even if they're run by people of a particular faith, will be helping everyone regardless of faith. So don't let that stop you reaching out to an organization you think would be helpful. Aside from organizational help and the logistics of burying remains, I can share with you that I didn't have any remains to bury. With my first miscarriage, I had my parents visiting from Australia, and I was over here in the USA. It was a really kind of intense time, and I miscarried all of a sudden. I had no warning. I just started bleeding very heavily, and I was at a shopping mall with my parents. So my main focus at that time was I was worried. I'm like, well, I don't know what's happening. I needed to take care of the bleeding. I lost a lot in the bathroom of the shopping mall, and I didn't think to even look for remains. So some women have the presence of mind, and if they want to, they will look for the remains. Some have early warning, so they may have gone for an ultrasound and found that the heart was not beating. And so they knew what was coming. And so that when it began, they may have birthed their baby as the miscarriage happens in the tub, so they could retrieve the remains and make arrangements that way. So there's a whole range of things to do. I want you to know that however you react is okay. So all the emotions are fine. Some women are very matter of fact at the time, and then later on, they wish they'd done something, and it's never too late. So even without a burial or a service, you can always do a late memorial service. But even without a burial or a service, you can do things privately yourself. Some people put up pictures. If you have an ultrasound, sometimes people like to frame those or make a memory box. Do something that's special to them. Naming the baby is a big one, so that you're able to refer to it. Catholics might choose a patron saint for the baby. Prayers, flowers, little gardens. I know one lady who, in my work as a fertility awareness-based educator, I see the highs and the lows. So I've seen a lot of women who have happily had babies, a lot of women who are avoiding pregnancy and successfully doing so, a lot of women successfully conceiving and having their babies. It's wonderful. I also see women who suffer loss a lot. One woman bought a rose bush that she displayed at a memorial service for the baby, and then she planted it in her garden, and she's reminded in a beautiful way by flowers every year. So there are many things that you can do. Some people involve their families. If they have other children, it becomes part of the family lore to talk about, your sibling, your brother or sister who died in utero. So your brother or sister who died very young and is, with a beloved passed away family member or in heaven or something like that. So the children grow up knowing that miscarriage happens. So that's a good thing to be aware of from an early age before it starts to feel awkward. Say, oh, look, sometimes this happens. And also remembering that your family remembers you. So some people involve their family like that. Some people share and get gifts from family members as mementos, like a piece of cloth with angel wings embroidered on, things like that. So something to remember. So that's my story. And let me see if I can see any questions as we go along. All right. I don't see any questions popping up. If you do have questions, I am happy to answer to the best of my ability. If you want to share what it is that you've done or share that you haven't done anything and you're looking for ideas, that's absolutely fine. You can pop the questions in the comments section of this video or in the announcement video on the Get Pregnant Fast group with Premom. And I will come back and I will answer them as best as I can. I would love if people shared with me the way that I've shared with you. So yeah, memorializing miscarriage. It's not a weird thing. You'll find that if you ask around, a lot of families, a lot of women have done this. So let's not be ashamed. Again, if you're a private person and you want to keep this in your own heart, absolutely fine. But if you do want to share, we are here for you. Thank you so much for joining me today for this difficult topic. Again, I'm a partner with Premom. So if you need any chatting support, you can find me on the Premom app under More. And I will talk with some of you later on, and I'm happy to field your questions. Have a wonderful day, everybody.